I never thought much of weddings. Too much fuss, overpriced flowers, a DJ who plays the same Bruno Mars songs on repeat. But the night I ended up as my ex's emergency +1 to his sister's wedding, yeah, that changed everything. Let me back up. It had been almost a year since Tyler and I broke up. We hadn't talked in months, which honestly was probably for the best. We didn't end things terribly, but we definitely didn't stay friends. So when he texted me out of nowhere, I almost didn't open it. I was halfway through folding laundry when my phone buzzed with, "Hey, weird question. Are you free this weekend?" I blinked, stared at it, considered ghosting, then curiosity got the better of me. "Depends. Why?" His reply came fast. "My sister's wedding. Long story. My date bailed. Everyone's expecting someone. Would you come with me? Just for appearances." Of all the things I expected from Tyler, this wasn't on the list. He wanted me, his ex, to pretend we were still together. Or at least, not together. I should have said no. It was clearly a bad idea. But the thing is, I was between jobs, my weekend was wide open, and a small, stubborn part of me wanted to see what the hell he was thinking. So I said yes. We agreed to meet at the venue, some beachside inn 2 hours away, fancy enough to have valet parking and complimentary champagne on arrival. When I pulled up Saturday afternoon, Tyler was already outside, pacing in front of the entrance in a perfectly fitted navy suit, his tie slightly askew like always. I hadn't seen him in almost a year, and damn if he didn't still make my stomach tighten in that old familiar way. "Hey," he said when he saw me. His voice was steady, but his eyes flicked over me nervously, like he was checking to see if I still looked the same. I felt a weird flutter in my chest. "Hey," I replied, keeping it cool. "You look clean." He chuckled, and just like that, it was like no time had passed. The wedding itself was beautiful. Sunset ceremony, soft-string quartet music, all that romantic crap. I tried to stay in the background, but Tyler kept introducing me to his extended family like we were still something, hand on my back, leaning in close when he talked, smiling like I was his favorite person in the world. And the crazy part? I went along with it, too easily. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe it was just Tyler. He had that effect on me. At dinner, we got stuck at a table with all the single cousins. They peppered us with questions. How long we'd been together, how we met, if we were next. I kept laughing and dodging, but Tyler answered without hesitation. 3 years, he said, looking right at me. Met at a bookstore. He bought the last copy of a Murakami I wanted, so I had to flirt my way into getting it. That was true. Every word. Later, after too much dancing and a cake cutting that went on forever, we slipped out to the patio. The air was cooler, quieter. The ocean hummed in the distance, and the music from the reception felt like a dream happening far away. I leaned against the railing. "You always this good at pretending?" Tyler stood beside me, his profile lit by string lights overhead. It didn't feel like pretending. That stopped me. I turned to him. "Tyler," he looked down. "I know. I shouldn't have asked you to come. When she told me I could bring someone, I thought of you. I always think of you." Something in me cracked, just a little. "You miss me?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He nodded, not looking away. "I never stopped." Neither did I. But I didn't say that. Not yet. We didn't go back into the reception right away. Tyler stayed leaning against the railing, staring out at the water like it held all the answers he wasn't ready to give. I stood beside him, the distance between us shrinking with every minute that passed in silence. The way he said he never stopped thinking about me. It was playing on loop in my head. "Did you mean it?" I asked finally. "What you said back there?" He didn't look at me, just nodded. "Yeah, I did." The thing with Tyler is, he's not the type to say things unless he's sure. When we were together, he used to take forever to admit how he felt. And now, here he was, laying it all out under string lights and the smell of sea salt and cake. "What happened to us?" I asked before I could stop myself. That got his attention. He turned toward me, lips parted like he wasn't expecting the question. "We were dumb," he said quietly. "We didn't know how to talk about the hard stuff. so we didn't. He wasn't wrong. Things had gotten rocky when he started grad school, and I was juggling 2 jobs. We both shut down instead of leaning in. Fought more. Slept less. Eventually, we both agreed to step back. For now. But now stretched into months. And yet, standing next to him, it didn't feel like a year had passed. I missed you, I admitted, my voice rougher than I wanted it to be. Tyler looked at me like he wanted to say something more, maybe something big, but instead, he reached out and gently took my hand. Just that. No dramatic kiss. No declarations. Just the heat of his fingers lacing with mine like they used to, and that one small, grounding touch said everything. "Let's get some air," he said, tugging gently. We walked down the steps toward the beach, our shoes sinking slightly in the sand. The wedding music grew fainter behind us. Out here, there were only crashing waves and the faint glint of stars above. We sat near a piece of driftwood, the sand still warm from the day. Tyler unbuttoned his jacket and leaned back, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in a long time. "I wasn't planning on this," he said. "I was gonna ask my coworker, remember Eric? But he got COVID last minute." I laughed. "You almost brought Eric?" "Wow, I feel honored." He nudged my shoulder. "Don't be dramatic. You were always my first pick." That's not what it sounded like. "Okay, fine. You were always my first. Actual option. Happy?" I smiled. "I'll allow it." The breeze picked up, and Tyler leaned in a little. I could feel the side of his thigh pressed against mine. My pulse picked up. "I lied about something," he said suddenly. My heart jumped. "What?" When I said this wasn't pretending, he looked over at me, eyes darker now. "I meant, I wanted it to be real again." My breath caught. That vulnerability in his voice, it broke through something in me. We sat there in silence for a beat too long. Then I reached over and rested my hand on his leg. "So do something about it." He didn't hesitate this time. Tyler leaned in, slow but certain, and kissed me. It wasn't a dramatic, sweep me off my feet moment. It was soft, careful, like he wasn't sure if I'd let him. But when I kissed him back, everything that had been unsaid over the last year finally slipped between us like sand through fingers. The kiss deepened, his hand moving to the back of my neck, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was trying to hold myself together. I just felt home. We didn't speak for a while after the kiss, not because there was nothing to say, but because it felt like everything had already been said, wordlessly in that moment. Tyler leaned his forehead against mine, our breaths sinking. The sound of waves crashing just feet away gave the whole thing this surreal, almost cinematic vibe. Like we were frozen in time, tucked away in some parallel universe where this kind of thing could actually happen. Exes reuniting at weddings. No bitterness, no second thoughts. Just feeling. "You still kiss the same," I said, breaking the silence. He huffed a soft laugh. "Yeah? Yeah." Tyler leaned back, just slightly. "You still look at me the same way?" I raised an eyebrow. "What way is that?" "Like I'm worth loving," he said. I didn't know what to say to that, so instead I just looked at him. Really looked. His hair was shorter than I remembered, and his jaw was a little scruffier. But his eyes were the same. Honest. Brown with a gold ring around the pupils. Eyes that never could lie, even when his mouth tried. "I meant what I said earlier," he continued. "I think I messed up. Letting you go." I swallowed. "We both did." He nodded slowly. "So what now?" That was the million-dollar question. "We go back inside," I said. "Eat the rest of the tiny cake slices. Make awkward small talk with your drunk uncles. Pretend we didn't just kiss under the stars." He cracked a smile. "And after that?" I hesitated. "I don't know. But maybe we don't wait another year to talk about it." Tyler reached over and squeezed my hand. "Deal." We walked back up the beach, brushing sand off our shoes. Inside, The reception had shifted into full party mode. People were tipsy, shoes were off, ties loosened. The DJ was now firmly in his late 2000s pop phase. We slid into the room like nothing had happened, and no one seemed to notice we were gone. Except one person. Tyler's mom. She cornered us near the dessert table, a champagne flute in one hand and a knowing glint in her eye. "You two seem cozy tonight." I almost choked on a bite of tiramisu. Tyler, to his credit, didn't flinch. "Just catching up," he said smoothly. His mom tilted her head. "Uh-huh." "Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. He's been smiling more tonight than he has in months." She gave me a warm pat on the arm and floated off before we could respond. "That woman has laser vision," I muttered. "She always liked you," Tyler said. "Even after everything." We made our way to a quieter corner as the party raged on. Tyler loosened his tie and leaned back in his chair, looking more like the guy the first used to fall asleep next to after long shifts and late-night ramen. "Do you ever think about moving back?" he asked. I blinked. "Back here?" he nodded. "To the city? To us?" There it was again, that subtle shift in the air. Hope. Cautious, fragile hope. I took a slow sip of champagne. I don't know. I left for a reason, Ty. I needed space. And now? I met his gaze. Now, I think I miss you more than I miss the space. He smiled. And it wasn't one of those half-hearted ones. It was full. Real. The kind I hadn't seen since before we started falling apart. A slow song came on. Something soft and familiar. Tyler stood up and held out his hand. "Dance with me?" I glanced around. People will stare. So let them. I hesitated just long enough to feel my pulse spike, then slipped my hand into his. We stepped onto the dance floor. Two guys slow dancing in the middle of a chaotic wedding crowd. And for once, I didn't care who was watching. I hadn't slow danced with anyone in a long time. Definitely not with an ex, and definitely not in front of 75 people who probably weren't expecting to see two guys swaying together under disco lights and Tool. But it didn't matter. Tyler held me like it was the most natural thing in the world, one hand resting lightly on my waist, the other laced with mine. Our bodies moved in quiet rhythm, closer than we needed to be, but not too close for comfort. There was warmth between us, but not the awkward kind. It was familiar, easy. "Remember when we used to do this in the living room?" I asked, leaning in just enough so only he could hear. He chuckled. "Yeah, you always made me dance during movie credits. You never complained. Because you'd get that look in your eye, like if I said no, I'd be sleeping on the couch." I laughed softly, the kind of laugh that bubbles up from somewhere deep. I hadn't felt that light in a long time. We swayed for a few more minutes, just letting the music and the moment carry us. I caught a few glances, some curious, some surprised, but none hostile. A few smiles even. No one seemed to mind. If anything, people just looked, touched, like they were watching something that made sense. The song ended, and we stayed like that a moment longer than we should have. Then Tyler slowly let go of my hand, eyes lingering on mine. "Want to go back to the room?" he asked. My chest tightened just a bit. I hesitated. "Ty." "It's just talking," he added quickly. "I swear." I nodded. "Yeah, okay." We slipped away from the reception, slipping down the hallway to the row of reserved guest suites. His room was on the second floor, overlooking the beach. He unlocked the door and stepped aside to let me in. It looked exactly like what you'd expect. Neatly made bed, half-unpacked suitcase, tuxedo hanger draped over a chair, the faint scent of his cologne in the air. I walked in slowly, trying not to overthink why my heart was racing like I was back in college, sneaking into someone's dorm room. Tyler grabbed 2 bottles of water from the mini fridge and tossed one to me. "Still like your water ice cold?" Some things don't change. We sat on the edge of the bed, side by side, shoulders just barely brushing. "You meant it?" I asked after a few quiet sips. What you said about wanting it to be real again. He nodded. Yeah, I've been thinking about you a lot this year, regretting how we let everything fall apart. I didn't fight hard enough. And then I thought it was too late. It wasn't all on you, I said. We both shut down. You were trying to juggle grad school, I was stressed about money and work. I wasn't exactly great at communicating either. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. You were scared, he said gently. I blinked. What do you mean? You were scared of how much I meant to you. You always kept one foot out the door, like you were waiting for the moment it would all go wrong. The words hit me harder than I expected, because they were true. I stared down at the bottle in my hands. Maybe I was, but I didn't want to lose you. You still don't have to, he said, voice softer now. I glanced over, and he was already watching me. Then he reached out and brushed a strand of hair away from my forehead. It was such a small thing, but it unraveled something inside me. He leaned in again. Slower this time, like he was giving me every chance to stop him. I didn't. This kiss wasn't tentative like before. It was deeper, hungrier, built on a year of what-ifs and almosts. His hand slid to the back of my neck, the pressure grounding. I moved closer, knees touching, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. We didn't say anything else for a while. Words weren't really necessary. The weight of his body against mine, the rhythm of our breath, those spoke louder. At some point, we pulled back, foreheads pressed together, just breathing. I missed this, he whispered. You, us. Yeah, I said. Me too. We lay down, fully clothed, side by side on the bed. My head rested against his shoulder. It wasn't about intimacy, not tonight. It was about something quieter. Reconnection. Trust. The kind of comfort that only comes from someone who knows your worst days and still wants to lie next to you anyway. Somewhere between the silence and the softness, I felt something settle inside me. Something that had been restless for a long time. Maybe coming to this wedding wasn't such a bad idea after all. I woke up the next morning to soft light bleeding through the curtains and the steady rise and fall of Tyler's chest beneath my cheek. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then the slow pulse of memory returned. The wedding, the beach, the kiss. His hand in mine. We hadn't done anything more than fall asleep tangled together, fully clothed. Limbs intertwined like a quiet truce. I shifted slightly, careful not to wake him, but his arm tightened around me in response. You awake? I murmured. He groaned, voice hoarse with sleep. Barely. He opened one eye and looked at me with a lopsided smile. You're still here. Wasn't sure if I'd be kicked out once the wine wore off. You think I'm that dumb? I think you used to be, I teased. He smirked, eyes drifting shut again. Fair. We lay there for a few minutes in the kind of silence that doesn't feel awkward, just shared. The kind that only exists between people who've already lived through each other's worst days. His thumb started tracing slow circles along my back, and I let myself sink into the comfort of it. Eventually, I sat up. I should shower. People are going to start waking up and asking questions. Let them, Tyler said, stretching. What are they going to do? Disinvite me from my own sister's brunch? I smiled, but the reality still lingered. We weren't back together yet. We hadn't talked about anything beyond the kiss, beyond the moment. And moments, I knew too well, could fade. Tyler must have sensed it too. He sat up beside me and touched my knee. Let's go get coffee after brunch, just us. Talk for real, no wedding distractions. Okay, I nodded. I'd like that. We dressed in yesterday's clothes. Me trying to fix the crease in my shirt collar. Him running his fingers through his messy hair. Somehow, we still looked like the best version of what we used to be. We left the room and slipped downstairs. At brunch, people were groggy and hungover, nursing mimosas and nibbling on croissants. Tyler's mom greeted us with a sly smile and motioned for us to join her at the family table. "You two seem close this morning," she said. Tyler shot me a look, but I just grinned and sipped my coffee. The conversation drifted to wedding highlights. Who cried during the vows, who got too drunk to drive, who was caught skinny dipping at 2 a.m. Tyler and I played along, laughing, blending into the background. Every now and then, our knees would touch under the table, and neither of us would move. After brunch, we made our escape. We found a quiet cafe down the road, the kind with local art on the walls and indie music humming through the speakers. Tyler grabbed us a booth near the window. I watched him as he ordered, still trying to wrap my head around how familiar he felt after all this time. When he sat down, he didn't waste time. "So," he started, hands clasped in front of him, "what does this mean to you?" I appreciated the bluntness. No games, just real questions. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I know I haven't felt like this in a long time. I missed us. Who I was with you." Tyler nodded. "Same. I kept telling myself I moved on, that I was over it. But last night proved I was lying." I looked at him. "So what do we do? Pick up where we left off?" He shook his head. "No, we don't go backwards. We start over. New rules. New pace. If we do this, we do it differently. Better." My chest swelled with something warm and terrifying. Hope, maybe. "Okay," I said softly. "We start over." He smiled, that slow, familiar curve of his lips that always made my stomach flip. "Hi, I'm Tyler," he said, holding out his hand. I stared at him, then laughed. But I took his hand anyway. Well, you know who I am." "Still," he said, holding onto it longer than necessary. "Nice to meet you again." The barista called our names, and we got our coffees, slipping into a new rhythm like it was second nature. We talked for over an hour, about everything and nothing. Not just the past, but the future. What we wanted, what we didn't. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it was possible. The ride back into the city was quieter than the way in. Not tense, not awkward. Just thoughtful. Tyler drove, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift where my fingers occasionally brushed his. Each time, we'd both pretend we weren't noticing. But we did. We'd talked about starting over, but we hadn't really defined what that meant yet. Were we dating? Reconnecting? Testing the waters? It was uncharted territory, familiar but different. When he dropped me off at my place, he parked and turned the engine off without saying anything. Just sat there for a second, staring at the steering wheel. "You want to come up?" I asked. He looked over at me, surprised, but not in a bad way. "You sure?" "Yeah, we don't have to do anything. Just hang out, keep talking." His smile was small but real. "Yeah, I'd like that." Inside, my apartment looked exactly how I'd left it. Messy but lived in. A half-folded hoodie on the couch. My keys in a bowl by the door. A half-full water bottle next to the sink. Tyler looked around, taking it all in like it was the first time. "It smells like you," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "And what do I smell like?" He smirked. "Laundry detergent and iced coffee. Maybe a little pine." I rolled my eyes. "Wow, so hot," he grinned. "Hey, it's comforting. It's very you." I tossed him a pillow and flopped onto the couch. He joined me a second later, sitting close enough that our arms brushed. We watched some old crime doc that neither of us paid attention to. Instead, we talked about work, our families, stuff we hadn't told each other when we were too busy pretending everything was fine the first time around. "So, are you seeing anyone?" he asked casually during a lull. I shook my head. "Nope. Tried dating apps for about a month. Deleted them after the third guy tried to pitch me a crypto startup during drinks." Tyler winced. "Yikes. I went on 2 dates with someone in my program. Nice guy, but he talked about Nietzsche more than he did about himself. I felt like I was in a philosophy lecture the whole time. Sexy, I said, smirking. I know, right? The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the floor. The room glowed orange and pink, soft and warm. Tyler turned slightly, looking at me. Can I ask something kind of forward? I nodded. Go ahead. Do you still love me? The air in the room shifted. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because I wasn't sure I was ready to say it out loud. But he deserved the truth. We both did. I don't think I ever stopped, I said. His throat moved as he swallowed. Me either. He leaned in again, slower this time, more deliberate. Our lips met in a kiss that wasn't urgent or wild. It was steady, confident, like we were both sure now, like we'd finally earned this moment. And this time, we didn't stop at just a kiss. It was careful at first, like relearning someone's body after a long time apart. His hands on my back, mine tracing the lines of his shoulders, the way he moved closer like he was still asking permission with every shift. It wasn't about lust. It was something deeper, intimate, familiar but new. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. Afterward, we lay there tangled up in each other, limbs overlapping, breath evening out slowly. Tyler's head was on my chest, his hand resting gently on my side. The air between us was heavy with something fragile and enormous. This doesn't feel like a restart, he said quietly. It feels like a homecoming. I ran my fingers through his hair. Then let's not mess it up this time. He nodded against my chest. We won't. The next few weeks passed in this strange in-between space. Part old habit, part new beginning. Tyler and I didn't immediately label things. We didn't update our relationship statuses or post anything online. It wasn't about declaring anything to the world. It was about rebuilding something just between us. He started coming over more often, sometimes with takeout, sometimes just to sit on my couch and work side by side in silence. He'd kick off his shoes the moment he walked in, like he'd never stopped doing that. I'd keep a fresh toothbrush for him in the bathroom without saying anything. One Saturday, he showed up with a tote bag full of groceries and said, "You're not living off frozen dumplings this weekend." I refuse. I watched him move around my kitchen like he owned it, pan sizzling, sleeves rolled, humming some indie song off pitch. And I remember thinking, this is what I missed. We didn't avoid the hard conversations either. We talked about the breakup, what we could have done differently, how we both let stress build walls instead of bridges. It wasn't easy, but it felt necessary. One night, we were lying in bed, limbs tangled, the city humming outside my window, when Tyler said, "Do you think we're just falling back into something familiar? Or do you think this is actually new?" I rolled over to face him. Maybe both. Familiar doesn't mean wrong. It means we know where the cracks are, and now we can patch them instead of pretending they weren't there. He looked at me for a long time, eyes soft. That's a very you answer. I'll take that as a compliment. It is. There were little moments too, the ones that sneak up on you when you're not looking, like how he'd always pull me close in his sleep, one arm draped across my chest like I might float away, or how he'd text me home when he knew I was working late, just to make sure I'd get back safe, or how he kept a photo of us tucked in his wallet, an old, faded one from our first vacation together, something I didn't even know he still had. Then came the night we ran into an old mutual friend at a bar. We hadn't planned to go out. It was one of those spontaneous let's get a beer decisions, but the place was packed, and before we even made it past the second round, someone called out from behind us. No way. Tyler? And holy shit, is that you? We turned to see Aaron, a guy we both knew from back in the day. Loud, charming, the type who never missed anything. Aaron raised an eyebrow, eyes flicking between us. Well, this is unexpected. Tyler smiled, casual but calm. Yeah, we're seeing each other again. Aaron's grin widened. Damn, about time. We laughed it off. But afterward, on the walk back to my apartment, Tyler was quiet. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just weird having it out in the open. You're not having second thoughts, are you?" He shook his head quickly. "No, just, I forgot how visible it feels sometimes. Being out. Together." We stopped at a crosswalk, the light blinking red, the city buzzing all around us. "You want to take it slower?" I offered. "We don't have to explain anything to anyone." Tyler looked at me, then reached down and took my hand. "No, I don't want to hide. Not from this, not from you." We crossed the street together, hand in hand, and for the first time since getting back together, I felt like we were walking forward. Not repeating the past, not recreating old patterns, but building something entirely new. And this time, we were doing it side by side. Fall crept in slowly, the way it always does in the city. The air turned sharper, jackets came out of closets, and the trees began their annual transformation, scattering gold and rust across sidewalks. Life didn't slow down, but it felt different. With Tyler back in it, we started spending entire weekends together. Grocery runs turned into lazy Sunday dinners. His clothes started mixing with mine in the closet, without any official move-in declaration. It just happened, the way most real things do, quietly, without fanfare. One night, in late October, he texted me from work. "Don't make plans Saturday. I've got something planned. Trust me." I was half nervous, half curious. Tyler didn't usually do surprises. When Saturday rolled around, he showed up in jeans, a hoodie, and that mischievous grin I hadn't seen since college. He handed me a scarf and a travel mug of coffee. "Come on," he said. "We're going on an adventure." He drove us upstate, just far enough that the skyline gave way to woods and open sky. We ended up at this lookout point he used to hike in grad school, one I'd never been to. It overlooked a valley drenched in orange and yellow, the whole world looking like it had been painted in warm tones. We stood there in silence for a while, sipping coffee, leaning against each other, just watching the leaves drift. "I used to come here when we weren't talking," he said suddenly. When I was trying to let go, I turned to him. "And?" He looked at me, eyes steady. "I never could." That quiet broke something open in me. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the little box I'd been carrying around for a week. Not a ring, not yet, but a key to my apartment. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a symbol. I held it out, palm up. "I know we said we were starting over, but I want you to stay, not just sleep over, actually stay." He stared at the key for a long second, then took it gently. "You sure?" I nodded. "Yeah, I want you around, for good this time." He didn't say anything for a second, just slipped the key into his pocket like it belonged there. Then he kissed me. Not rushed, not wild, just perfect. "I never thought we'd find our way back," he said, forehead resting against mine. "Me either, but I'm glad we did." We stood there until the wind picked up and reminded us it was getting cold. We walked back to the car hand in hand, and for the first time, I didn't wonder if he was going to disappear again. This time, we weren't trying to recapture the past. We were building something new. Messy, imperfect, but real. And maybe love isn't always about getting it right the first time. Sometimes it's about choosing each other again, even when it would have been easier to stay strangers.